afternoon and welcome back to Football League World TV. We've got another debate show for you this afternoon. We are going to be selecting 3 EFL Wonderkids we feel could follow in Fabio Carvalho'S footsteps. The Portuguese playmaker has had a wonderful season for Fulham, 8 goals and 7 assists in all competitions for the Portuguese player. He has now sealed a big money move to Liverpool. He'll be joining the Reds next season for a deal worth up to £7.7 million. My name is Samuel, Chief Editor of footballleagueworld.co.uk. I'm joined by 2 of my colleagues, Toby Walden and Marcus Ali, for today's show. Toby, how you getting on?
Yeah, good, thanks. Obviously, Carvalho, as you say, has been absolutely brilliant, hasn't he, for Fulham this season? So, I mean, there's some big expectations for these players that we're going to be talking about to live up to, but they wouldn't be in here if they didn't have a good chance of doing that for one reason or another. So, going to be really interesting to shine a light on a few of those.
Yeah, absolutely. Marcus, how you getting on?
Yeah, really well, thanks, Sam. Always good fun to try and predict the future in the EFL. I think Carvalho's definitely exceeded my expectations this season. So, yeah, it's been a good sort of exercise to pick 3 players that I can see really kicking on, maybe above where we all expect next season.
Absolutely. Right, let's touch on Fabio Carvalho first before we touch on any of the Wonder Kids to come. So, as I already mentioned at the top end of the show, Carvalho's had a fantastic season for Marco Silva's Fulham as they look well on course now to secure promotion to the Premier League and the Champions title with it as well, you'd imagine. Marcus, I'll come to you then first. You just said to me you didn't necessarily expect Carvalho to have a season he's had. Just what have you made in general of Carvalho's season at Fulham, and just how impressed have you been with him?
Well, it's been incredibly impressive, to be honest. I think even just the way that he dribbles on the ball, you don't have to watch him for very long in a game to tell that he's got ability above championship level. Some of the touches we've seen, some of the goals that he's scored have been of a much more mature player than his age. And of course, it was no surprise to see so much interest come flood in straight away, even in the opening month of the season after Fulham started very well. And obviously almost getting a deal done in January, of course. He didn't play that much in the Premier League last season. Obviously got a few appearances towards the back end when relegation was all but confirmed. So I assumed maybe more of the same this season for him to be phased in a little bit more, but he clearly impressed Marco Silva in pre-season, and he was one of the players that was happy to throw in straight away. And I think he deserves a lot of credit, as do some of Fulham's other forwards, for just how devastating Alexander Mitrovic has been this season, with teams having another little maestro to deal with in Carvalho. Has definitely made the Serbian a little bit more potent in front of goal this season. So, no, he's really stood out, and a player that I definitely expect big things from in the Premier League and even on the international stage in the future.
Yeah, I mean, the 19-year-old was courted by a lot of Premier League clubs for the last few months, and it was Liverpool who managed to grab his signature. He did nearly sign for Liverpool back in January, but that deal fell through right at the last minute on deadline day. But he is going to be a Red next season. Toby, just briefly, what do you think he's going to do at Liverpool? Do you think he could have a really fruitful career at Anfield?
Yeah, I can see this being actually a really good move for him. I mean, obviously it goes without saying that he's going to be in a team that's competing for some of the biggest trophies in world football with this move. And I think beyond that, he can definitely play a part for them. I mean, as Marcus sort of touched on there, he did get a few opportunities in the Premier League towards the end of last season. And I thought, from what I saw of him, he held his own pretty well at that point. I mean, got a really well taken goal in a 3-1 defeat at Southampton as well. So that sort of shows what he can do on that stage. And I think as well, I look at, say, Harvey Elliott, for example. He had that one season, didn't he, in the Championship at Blackburn. Really impressed last season there. And that alone was enough to sort of get him an opportunity at Liverpool for this season. And, he was right in the first team picture at Anfield from the start of this season. And obviously the injury picked up quite early in the campaign sort of derailed that a bit. But even so, with sort of the way he's come back, he's already on the fringes of the first team. And given Carvalho has made a similar impact at the same level as Elliott did, there's no reason why he shouldn't be sort of being eyed up for a similar sort of role at Liverpool next season to what Elliott has sort of had this season, and that I think has got to be a really sort of appealing prospect for Carvalho. And means he should really be sort of relishing the opportunity he's going to be getting from next season.
Yeah, definitely a very exciting move for Fabio Carvalho. He's off to Liverpool in the summer. Right, let's get straight into the list then. As I've already mentioned, Marcus and Toby will be selecting 3 EFL Wonderkids they feel could follow in Fabio Carvalho's footsteps. Marcus, let's start with you. Okay, so who have you got first up on your list, Marcus?
So my first player, and he sprang to mind, to be honest, straight away when I was making my notes for this video, and that's Malcom Ebiowei at Derby County. Just 18 years old and has started the last 6 games on the bounce for the Rams in the Championship and has really been a source of inspiration on the wing. I think we've seen Festi Ebisele's influence sort of slow down due to his sort of transfer speculation and some niggling injuries. But Ebiowei's really stepped into that mould and that void and position on the team sheet. And yeah, help Derby to continue to defy the odds. It does look like, of course, they're going to be going down to League One, but he's still been able to keep that fighting spirit going and has made some crucial contributions in the final third. He hasn't yet registered a goal or an assist, but he's played huge hands in those goals. I think he might have got brought down for a penalty and some other really big contributions that haven't quite got marked on those statistics that we all seem to look at. He completed 10 dribbles in the last match alone from 19 attempted against Swansea City. I think that says to what the sort of style of winger that he is. There's no lack of courage taking on his fullback, and he really has been a nightmare for defences since coming in. He's got a lot of X factor about his game, real edge of your seat player. And he's very physically developed for 18 years old, I think, as well. So I think he's ready for regular senior football, even going into next season. Obviously, there's a chance that he might not be in the Championship next season, and this move could even happen in the summer with his contract running out at Derby. Obviously, we have to wait and see what happens with their takeover situation. But yeah, Ebiowei for me, I think, is a player that's destined to play in the Premier League. He has spent time at Rangers and Arsenal in his youth, so we'll definitely have people that are looking at him, and I would imagine that a lot of top clubs have definitely taken a look at what he's been doing lately. So Malcom Ebiowei, maybe if a Championship club does pick him up as a free agent in the summer, he can be someone that can shine next season and even increase the attention that he's going to be getting from some top level clubs. He's definitely got plenty of ability to build on, and at 18 years old, the sky's the limit at this point.
Absolutely. I suppose it's quite a small sample size with Ebiowei so far. Obviously, he has only played a handful of games for Derby. But for me, what strikes me most is his sheer confidence on the ball. Given his age, some young players, are naturally a little bit more cautious on the ball. But his attacking offensive play is really quite scintillating to watch at times. So Malcom Ebiowei, someone to watch there. Marcus has selected a potential EFL Wonderkid who could follow in Fabio Carvalho's footsteps. Right, let's get your next pick next. Okay, who else have you chosen, Marcus?
So second, I've gone for DiMaggio Wright Phillips, 20-year-old Stoke City striker. We all know his background, son of Sean Wright Phillips, the grandson of Ian Wright. Bradley Wright Phillips would make him his uncle as well. A player that has seen a few first-team opportunities at Stoke City, but has sort of gained a large reputation due to his background. He's played at Manchester City and Blackburn before earning his first opportunity in senior football with the Potters this season. Now, he's actually had 6 starts in the Championship, which was more than I thought he had when I was looking into this. And he's only had 2 shots in the entirety of those 6 starts. He hasn't completed many of those games, but to only have 2 shots, I think, maybe speaks to the creative contingent at Stoke, but it's definitely something to improve on. One of those shots was a goal and a very tidy finish at that in the first minute of a game. But he's someone that I can see hopefully getting more opportunities next season. I think we're going to probably see a little bit of a change in direction at Stoke City. Their parachute payments have ran out in the last season or so. And I don't think financially they're going to be able to operate quite in the same way. Josh Madger probably won't be there next season because he's on loan from Bordeaux, and Stephen Fletcher's contract is expiring in the summer as well. With his age, I find it hard to see him getting an extension. So that would leave Jacob Brown, Tyrese Campbell and DiMaggio Wright Phillips to 3 exciting up-and-coming forwards at the Bet365 Stadium, potentially a new manager as well that if Wright Phillips can have a full pre-season with the first team, he'd definitely have a chance to be heavily involved at the start of the season. Now, given his profile, sort of the history and his family, I think he's already probably turned a lot of heads towards the top end of English football. I don't think it would take too much of an extended run. Maybe if he could score a few goals in the first month of next season, for some top clubs to start looking at him, and maybe even some rumours to arise towards the back end of the August transfer window. Of course, we're going to be kicking off a week or two earlier next season as well. So yeah, definitely a player I can see getting a Premier League move. Needs to improve, because 2 shots in 6 starts, even though it's not all his fault, a striker can only be as good as their service at times, does need improving on. But I think if the stars align with some more room for him in the first team in pre-season, and a manager that sees the potential that he's got, then he could play a big part for Stoke next season, and potentially be attracting some interest from some bigger clubs.
I suppose he's in a sort of similar situation as to what Fabio Carvalho was in. He was kind of came into the fold in the back end of that Premier League season, played 6, 7, 8, 9 games, and then really broke into the team this season, didn't he? And enjoyed a flourishing season, and was a key cog in that team. So I suppose DiMaggio will be hoping that sort of thing happens next season. There we go. DiMaggio Wright Phillips is Marcus's selection as one of the EFL Wonderkids to follow in Fabio Carvalho'S footsteps potentially next season. Right, one more selection next from Marcus. Okay, who is your final pick here, Marcus?
So finally ending with someone that I think's probably gone under the radar a little bit this season, and that's Joel Bagan at Cardiff City, just 20 years old. He's really stepped up nicely under Steve Morrison and Mick McCarthy in regards to that, because you had Joe Bennett and Kieran Brown at the club last season. Brown hasn't been around this season, now on loan at Oxford, and Joe Bennett, of course, ended up being a free agent in the summer. So it left a left-back berth and ended up being a left wing-back berth, very vacant, needing someone to step up from the under-23s, and that's exactly what Bagan's done, to be honest. There's been some really tough times this season for the Bluebirds, particularly at the start under Morrison and the back end under McCarthy. But I think Bagan's probably been one of their more reliable performers, even due to his lack of experience. And for his age, 20 years old, going into next season, where I fully expect him to be first choice yet again, he's going to be gathering quite a lot of championship experience for a player of his age. And considering that, his real breakthrough came this season, establishing himself in the first team. I think Morrison plays with a lot of width. The wide players are very important. Recently switched up to a back four, and Bagan is pretty equally comfortable as a wing back or a left back. He is improving his defensive numbers as well. He's not just one of those flying wing backs that you are a little bit suspicious of if they do play in a back four. And also, maybe more crucially, he enters the final year of his contract in the summer, which could make him present a little bit of value in the market for some Premier League clubs. Maybe a little similar to Stoke, but probably more extreme. I don't think Cardiff will be spending very much money in the summer transfer window, so I can't see anyone coming in to really contend with Bagan. So I certainly expect him to go straight in as first choice left back or left wing back next season. And if Cardiff can continue their upward trajectory, I think he's a player that attracts a lot more attention next season and could potentially get a move to the Premier League. Maybe not next season, but looking forward as well, if he can continue as positively as he's started in South Wales.
Yeah, you do get the impression Bagan will be a bit more of a permanent fixture in that Cardiff City 11 next term for sure. There we go. Marcus opting for Joel Bagan as his final selection for the free EFL Wonderkids that could follow in Fabio Carvalho'S footsteps. Thanks for that, Marcus. Right, it's time for Toby's selections next. Okay, Toby, who's your first pick?
Yeah, I've started off with Zach Lovelace at Millwall. Obviously, made a bit of history at the Den earlier this season when he became the club's second youngest ever player, still before his 16th birthday, I think, back in December. And obviously, at that sort of point, it was very much, it seemed, that opportunity that he got was sort of down to a bit of a COVID outbreak in that Millwall squad that ruled out a lot of more senior players from getting into the matchday squad for that game. But I mean, you sort of look at his numbers since then. He's been on the matchday squad 10 10 more times since that debut, got off the bench 4 more times. So that sort of, to me, shows that Millwall don't just see that as being very much a one-off fortuitous opportunity for him. They look at Zach Lovelace as a player who can really make an impact for them and who is deserving of a place in and around this first team setup. Obviously, he was prolific at youth level as well before sort of getting this opportunity with Millwall. I think I was looking at the numbers. It was 21 goals in 19 games for the Lions in the youth setup when he got that opportunity for Millwall in the first team. And so, you sort of think if he is still there next season, then, Benik is only on loan at Millwall until the end of the season. Jed Wallace obviously never seems to be too much and too long until there's speculation emerging around him. And obviously he's another huge outlet for Millwall from an attacking perspective. So if we do see those move on, then again, that could potentially open up opportunities for Lovelace to really impress in this Millwall side. And that, of course, is even if he's still there himself again, this is one that could potentially, happen quite quickly. Even you feel, back in January, there was links with Rangers, and I think at the time, Millwall manager Gary Rowett sort of said he can't offer any guarantees on the future of the striker. So that sort of suggests that the uncertainty is already there around his future at the club, and B, there is certainly interest from these sort of big European sides that could certainly appeal to a player such as Lovelace as a potential destination for them to really go in and sort of, further their career at a club where they were already set up to be competing for silverware in the not too distant future.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose somewhat of a similar situation happened with Mason Burstow. Marcus, you can probably speak about him a little bit more. A player that played, a handful of times really for Charlton, but was picked up by Chelsea. We'll see what happens with Lovelace. Obviously, I said to you both before we came on air, the fact that he's born in 2006 is absolutely bonkers to me. But clearly a player that Millwall rate very highly. He wouldn't have been involved in as many squads as he has done if he wasn't rated there. So it could potentially be a breakthrough season for Lovelace next term. He'll be one to watch out for. Right, let's look at Toby's second pick next. Okay, who else have you gone for, Toby?
Yeah, to be honest, Marcus has done a bit of work for me here because I've also gone for DiMaggio, Wright, Phillips in my 3 selections here. But yeah, again, I'm a huge fan of Wright Phillips, really exciting young player. I sort of remember when he first really got handed that opportunity for Stoke. It was in that 2-0 win at Hull City just earlier this season. And it was quite a remarkable debut, the way he really just sort of burst onto the scene in the starting lineup. He was quite a breath of fresh air, really, in that game with the way he was looking to really get involved and try and make things happen, which he did do really well for my money. Obviously, we've touched on already that goal he took again, really well taken finish. And I think as well with that sort of individuality and the creativity that he looks to bring out, I sort of see Wright Phillips as maybe a player who can sort of play in a variety of different roles in attack, maybe for Stoke. Maybe he's one who, with that sort of trickery that he's got, can maybe switch it a bit out wide and look to create for other players, or who can get more central into the area and pose a goal for it himself, as he did with that strike he took against Fulham. And, as we mentioned again, with the family links and, the Manchester City youth pedigree that he has, he's clearly a player with a great deal of potential. And I think as well, with as Marcus touched on, the players that are, it seems, going to be moving on from Stoke, the likes of Philogene Badace, Nick Powell out of contract or at the end of their loans at the end of this season. There's going to be a lot of sort of voids in that squad to fill. And, the fact that Wright Phillips is already getting a decent amount of game time does suggest that Stoke have the faith to give him that job of filling one of those spots, which could really then give him the opportunity to sort of show what he can do week in, week out. And I think if he does take that, then come this time next summer, if not before, there'll be a lot of questions, I think, being asked about his future, because at the end of next season, he will be into the final 12 months of his current Stoke contract. And that, again, will sort of put a lot of pressure on the Potters to maybe have to sell him then, while they can still get a fee for a player who is, worthy of a decent sum, whilst they still have that opportunity if he does sort of attract that attention. And I think that name and obviously the history with City, just on top of what he's already doing, just makes him even more of a tempting target for your top Premier League clubs looking to the Championship for potential lucrative signings in the mould of Carvalho.
Yeah, he does look like a player that could have a really exciting 22-23 season. I suppose Marcus alluded to it earlier. Perhaps he does need to improve his output in terms of goal contributions, but that might hopefully come with age. Right, let's look at your final selection next, Toby. Okay, who's your final pick for this show?
Yeah, I sort of took a look into League One for the time being, at least, with Wigan, who look to be well on their way to promotion back to the Championship for next season. And I've gone for Teemu Asgard here. Obviously, a bit different in that he was a regular for Wigan last season. Played over 30 games for them during the last campaign. Something that was probably helped by how difficult it was for them to put a squad together for that season whilst they were in administration. Now that after the takeover that happened during the summer, well, just before the summer, and the investment that they were able to put into really strengthening that squad last summer, it does mean that the opportunities have dried up a little bit for Asgard this season, albeit that really hasn't been helped by sort of a season-ending injury suffered in sort of around January time that has obviously kept him out much of the second half of the season, but nevertheless, still a really promising young player. Only a handful of appearances this season, but still some really significant contributions, with two sort of spectacular long-range last-minute winners, one against Shrewsbury in the league that, could prove so vital come the end of the season in terms of the extra couple of points that it gets Wigan in the automatic promotion race. And then also, again, another long-range last-minute winner against Blackburn in the FA Cup third round that just sort of helped keep that momentum building. And I think that sort of shows that even at this sort of early stage of his career, the 19-year-old, he's already really someone who is ready, willing, capable to really try and make a significant impact for his side. And I think that's something as well. You see when he comes on for Wigan, he does seem to give that side a lift, particularly when they're looking for a goal. And he can really do that from attacking midfield, or I have seen him at times go more into a hot central midfield role, and he can give them that sort of extra emphasis from deep as well. So that sort of shows how important a player he is for them, again, even at the early stage of his career. And I think that's backed up by the fact that, just earlier this season, they gave him a new long-term contract until the summer of 26, which sort of shows how much they value him and how big a player they think he can be in the future.
Yeah, it does look like a really promising player at the DW Stadium. Made appearances for Norway under-16s and Norway under-20s as well. So, again, rated by his country as well. Wigan, no strangers to promising talents. Joe Gelhardt, of course, left for Leeds United and is impressing at Ellen Road. And plenty others have done the same. Right, Toby, Marcus, thanks for your picks on this afternoon's show. We'll perhaps do a show in a year's time and see where these players are and assess our selections for this show. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in and watching our debate show on Football League World TV this afternoon. If you're watching this on repeat on YouTube, please do stick a like in below this video and subscribe to the channel. We really do appreciate all the new subscribers that come and join us here on Football League World TV. We've got plenty of good content coming up for you before the Easter bank holiday weekend, so make sure you tune in for that. But from myself, Toby, and Marcus, we shall see you soon.